Support players have been done a complete injustice by YouTube. For every other role, there's countless videos and guides out there, man. But for support, there's barely anything, and honestly, we're kind of part of that problem too. So we decided to fix this by creating the ultimate support guide for Season 16, giving you everything you actually need to climb this season, from how to completely take over your lane through wave control and trading, the roam timers that are going to let you 1v9 games even when your ADC is running it down, to the mid-game macro strategies every support needs to master. We've even included a bunch of tips and tricks at the end of this that you can start abusing in your very next game right after this video. But that's only the start of it, as we're super excited to announce our brand new Season 16 Support Essentials course. It's finally here, a 5-part course designed to walk you through every stage of the game, from navigating the lane phase, teaching you exactly how to play with every type of ADC no matter your support pick, as well as the must-know Season 16 trading and positioning rules challenger supports abuse to dominate lane. There's even an entire chapter there dedicated to roaming, showing you everything you need to know to start 1v9ing your games with insane map pressure, including a video on how to carry even with that troll ADC who just decides to run it down the second you leave them. We've all had them. And if that wasn't enough already, we also cover the warding mistakes that 99% of supports make that are costing them games, as we teach you everything, and I mean everything you need to carry through Vision alone, including a bunch of secret ward spots too, before then finally covering the art of team fighting and mid-game macro to ensure you are always in the right place at the right time. Now, if you're serious about climbing on support this season, this is your course. Check it out today, completely risk-free, using the link or pinned comment in the description below, as if you don't climb at least 5 divisions while actively using our service, you get every penny back. For now though, let's jump into the video, starting off with laning, and specifically the fundamentals that most supports below Diamond are completely ignoring right now. See, there are a few moments in bot lane where you get a massive advantage over your opponents, and most support players either don't know they exist or they play them so badly that they end up losing lane because of it. One of those being level spikes. Every single level up in League is worth around 600 gold in raw stats. But in bot lane, where both you and your ADC level up at the same time, hitting a level breakpoint first gives your duo a whopping 1200 gold advantage, and that's without even including the extra ability you both unlock. So here's everything that you need to know about this. You hit level 2 after you kill the first 3 melee minions on the second wave. And if you're a ranged support, your job is going to be simple. Help your ADC push with auto attacks and look for any free poke whenever the enemy walks up, especially if your opponents are melee. But even in range versus range matchups, players are completely oblivious to this. Take this game here from Masters Elo. Both duos push the wave first, but as the second wave arrives, Caitlyn and Karma get a clear lead in the push. But Milio is still tunneling on trying to contest, while Karma already recognizes they're about to hit level 2 first, so moves up, gets the root on Milio, and secures the easiest kill imaginable. Even if your opponents recognize this early though, and they respect it, hitting level 2 first is still super important, as you can use it to get some free damage, or even just zone your opponents off the wave to get your ADC an early CS lead. Now, if you're a melee support, this does change depending on the matchup. In melee versus melee lanes, hitting level 2 first is super important, as whoever gets there first has full control over the lane, so you need to be helping your ADC push. A great tip here is to avoid ever using your support item execute on the first wave. Save the charges for the second wave to instantly kill a minion from 50% health, then look for the surprise engage. But if you're up against a ranged support, getting level 2 first is going to be near impossible, at least in theory. But the lower elo you are, the more likely it is that the ranged support makes the mistake of playing far too passive. So don't just autopilot concede the push, actually pay attention to how the enemy duo plays it out. If they're not using their range advantage to contest, or especially if you're a melee champion who can engage from level 1, like Rel here, use the threat of a potential engage to ensure you get the push. Now that said, the higher you climb, the rarer this is really going to become. So if you are losing the push, or your ADC just doesn't care about it, that's completely fine. Just back off, let the wave come into you, and most importantly, preserve your health. Then, once you equalize levels, that's when you look for the engage, as the wave is going to now be on your side of the map, giving you more time to run down your opponents. Now that said, another timer to play around, especially for melee supports, is level 3, and for select supports like Alistar who need their full kit to fight, can actually be even more impactful than level 2. What will often happen is that if you lose the level 2 push, your opponents will naturally end up building a big wave that will eventually crash, and then it starts supports rebounding back to them, which typically happens around the 4th wave. So if you're aware of this, you can rush down the first 2 melee minions, hit level 3, and force an all-in. And truthfully, you'll be shocked at how often this really works. But while playing around level spikes are obviously really important here, one of the easiest ways to improve your laning on support comes down to one simple concept: positioning. Stand too far behind your ADC, and you won't have any pressure as a duo, and you won't be able to trade at all. Or if you're too far up, you might get engaged on or chunked before your ADC gets a chance to do anything in return. In fact, this is the biggest complaint that we hear from ADC players about their support. Yet, it can all be solved by learning one simple concept: parallel positioning. The general premise of parallel positioning is that during lane and when looking to trade, you and your ADC should, as much as possible, be side by side whenever you move up or when you trade, so you're always in range to hit and pressure the same target at all times. Take the Soraka from this game right here. Ashe and Nami get the level 2 advantage that we just mentioned, but pay attention to both supports here. Soraka steps back and baits the Ashe to move up, forcing her into the 2v1, while Nami isn't able to do anything about it. Then, Jinx and Soraka continue to kite back, keeping themselves parallel. The easiest way to envision this is kind of like a triangle. You want to match your ADC's positioning at all times, so together, you end up at the base of the triangle, while trying to make your opponents the point of the triangle. If they move up, you step back, and we see the result of that right here. Even though Ashe had that level advantage that we just talked about, she ends up having to flash away, at which point, Nami then makes another mistake though, not adapting her positioning. So now she's the one in a 1v2. So from that, you can see how understanding this concept can build you a huge advantage in your games. The fact Soraka understood this, while Nami didn't, ended up getting them a lead from a losing position. Now, there's an obvious immediate concern I'm sure every one of you are thinking right now. What if your ADC doesn't know about this or doesn't care? Well, we've all played with ADCs who refuse to trade. Every one of us have. They completely sell you out the first chance they get, or they just flat out run it. While this will happen, you obviously, well, you can't control your ADC, but you can control what you do. You can control yourself. If your ADC's playing up, you move up and match your ADC. If they play back, you move back with them. You can always stand parallel to them, even if they don't stand parallel to you. Whether you have either an overly aggressive or an overly passive ADC, you're going to have to adapt to their positioning. It may not be fun, I get that, but truthfully, that's all you can really do. Now, with your positioning sorted, let's talk about the one thing most supports are getting completely wrong when it comes to trading in lane. See, one of the biggest mistakes that we see supports make is how they trade with the enemy ADC. Just like this, they'll walk up, trade an auto, or maybe auto a spell in return for one auto from the enemy ADC. Support champions tend to have some of the lowest base stats in the game. Low base health, low base AD, and our support item provides only 30 health compared to a Doran's Blade, which offers almost 3 times that on top of 10 AD, which obviously makes sense as ADCs are all about their auto attacks. But this is where a super crucial laning concept really comes into play. Every laner in the game primarily pays attention to one singular thing: the enemy minions. They watch when they get low and they focus on last hitting them. However, as a support, you have a unique advantage here. You're not required to last hit, which is why the bulk of your mental stack should instead be focusing on your own minion wave, specifically the ones getting low, as just like abilities have cooldowns, so do auto attacks, and when last hitting, an ADC is locked into their auto attack animation, and this is why you should be looking to time your trades when the enemy ADC goes to last hit. Every time they walk up, you try to auto them or throw a spell. They can't trade back because they just used their auto on the minion. If you do this over and over and over, you're going to slowly whittle down that health for free. They can't do anything about it. And not to mention, this is also an essential skill for any supports with skill shots, as rather than just poking whenever it's available, you can time your abilities around the enemy ADC's last hits. Pay attention to your minions. When they walk up, you know where they're going to be and that they're about to be locked in the wind-up animation of their attack, so it's basically guaranteed to land. Now, there's one more concept that ties all of these trading fundamentals together, and it's one that a lot of supports, well, they just never really think about. Your health bar as a resource, not something to protect, not something to keep full, a resource that you should be expending to gain advantages in lane. See, here's how you should think about bot lane. You and your ADC share a combined health pool, almost like a power gauge for the lane. If both of you are full HP and both of your opponents are at full HP, the lane is even. But if your ADC loses half their health and the enemy duo both lose half theirs as well, while you're still at full health, your joint power gauge as a duo is still higher than theirs. Take this game here. Smolder walks up, gets flash engaged on by the Leona, and ends up losing a ton of his health. Brand and Smolder trade back. Get some good damage as Leona backs out, but still, Smolder is dangerously low, while Brand is basically full health. This is where most supports make a huge mistake, as they're going to see this and think, okay, we're losing lane, we need to play safe. But this is exactly where that power gauge comes into play, as Brand and Smolder combined technically have more health. It's just up to Brand to use that. So watch what he does here. He walks up and plays insanely aggressive, and despite that good engage by Leona and MF, they're now actually the ones behind in the lane, as Brand understood that concept and knows that he's high enough health that even if Leona did engage on him, they would just lose that trade, as Smolder could still freely just attack. So he's able to completely zone them off the wave. And this obviously works the other way around too. If you've taken too much damage, but your ADC is high on health, the roles just reverse. Now, everything that we've covered so far, level spikes, positioning, trading, all have one thing in common. They rely at least partly on your ADC, but this next concept is completely in your hands. It doesn't matter about your ADC. Take a look at this game here. Karma went for a roam top, but unfortunately, it leads to Caitlyn getting dove by the enemy jungler and Jhin, with her barely making it back in time to save the day. Luckily though, her and Nunu are able to clean up and kill both in return. But pausing right here, what should Karma do now? The correct answer is hold the wave. So she walks right into the wave and prevents it hitting the turret. By doing this, it's going to achieve two things. First, and most obvious, it stops the wave crashing into the turret. So when Caitlyn eventually gets back, she's going to be losing barely any gold and barely any experience. Second, by simply holding the wave like this until your own minions arrive, it's going to set up what's known as a freeze, keeping the wave on your side of the lane, which, as we know, is not only beneficial for setting up all-ins or even ganks, but also allowing your ADC to play safe in lane, assuming that they don't just get back to lane and autopilot push, but hey, we can only do so much for them, right? Anyway, we can see the benefits of this right here. Milio and Ashe fast push so they can get a base, but Karma hangs around to hold that wave for her Caitlyn. Now watch what happens. Caitlyn sets up that freeze, forcing Milio and Ashe to have to push up, allowing them to all in, while Kayn flanks from behind for what might be the easiest gank that you've ever seen in League, all off the back of that one support play. But obviously, no matter what you do as the support, some games you're just gonna have, well, let's just say a questionable ADC. But the thing is, a bad ADC doesn't necessarily mean you lose the game. All it means is that bot lane is not where you're gonna win it. And the sooner you recognize that, the sooner you can start carrying your games through one of the most important skills you can develop as support, roaming. But first, listen, if you found any of this helpful so far, trust me, trust us. We're barely scratching the surface here where it comes to the early game. So if you want to go deeper, a little bit farther in, be sure to check out our full support course as we break down everything you need to know about wave control, laning, and trading, including the advanced wave control tricks challenger support players are abusing to completely take over lanes, and most importantly, how to actually carry that lane phase, no matter the support that you're playing. Check it out today using the link or pinned comment in the description below. Support's biggest strength is that you're the only role in the game that doesn't need to farm, meaning if you know how, you have the ability to impact the entire map. And without a doubt, if you want to climb, roaming is going to be the #1 thing that you need to master. And here's the thing about roaming. It's so much easier than most players think it is and what YouTube might have you believe. The most basic roam timing every support needs to know is the rebound roam. When you and your ADC crash a wave into the enemy turret, unless the enemy duo can clear it before their reinforcing wave arrives, it's going to slowly push back towards you. This is your roam timer. Your ADC can just play it safe and collect the farm as it pushes into them. But here's the key about this. Once that wave reaches your turret, that timer's up. If you're not back by then, exactly like this Shaco support here, your ADC is going to be at risk of getting dove, losing a massive wave, and potentially just being completely out of the game. Not to mention, you're losing out on all that experience yourself. Take this game here. Sylas and Ashe push the wave in both base, meaning now, as we know, Sylas has a roam timer. So he looks at the lanes, sees top is looking incredibly volatile with both laners super low, and decides to head up there, syncing up with his Nunu to force the Nars flash and then kill the enemy jungler. Meanwhile, Ashe is safely farming from a distance as the wave pushes into her. Then Sylas immediately bases and rushes straight down to bot lane, making it just in time before the wave crashes a little over a minute later. Now I know what you're thinking, that's a Sylas support. Of course he can roam well, but any support can do this, I promise. Even on enchanters, you can often be the deciding factor with your roams with clutch shields or clutch heals or even slows to set up kills or save allies from your roams. Now though, you have your roam timer, the question is, where do you actually go? And the answer in most situations is so stupidly simple. Run straight down mid. This is completely broken, man, because mid lane is the center of the map, meaning regardless of where a play breaks out anywhere on the map, you are going to be close to it in mid. Exactly like this Karma right here. The same thing. Her and Jhin force the enemy duo to base, crash the wave, and rather than walking straight back to bot, she paths down mid, spots a fight breaking out between Graves and Yasuo, pivots to topside river, gets there just in time to save the Graves, and sets her Akali up for the kill. And then barely a minute later, the same thing happens again. She helps Jhin push bot, heads mid, helps Akali pick up another free kill on Yasuo, then makes it back before the wave crashes to help Jhin turn around the all-in from Aphelios. And the reason this is so incredibly strong is that due to the Season 16 home guard changes, you can get back out on the map so incredibly fast that it's essentially risk-free. Worst case, nothing happens, and you just pad back down to bot, losing maybe a minion or two of experience at max. But this season especially, roaming has become even more broken if you want to climb, and it's all because of those home guard changes. It now takes around 12 seconds to get back to mid lane from the fountain, and about 17 seconds to get back to a side lane tier 1, where a rebound is typically going to take around a minute to crash into your turret if your opponent's slow push. And listen, you can build on both of these concepts that we just talked about by doing something called stealing tempo. It sounds fancy, but it's super simple. Take this Blitzcrank here. Him and his ADC pick up a kill on the enemy Draven. At this point, Jinx obviously just wants to push the wave and base to spend her gold. Now, while Blitz could stay and help with that and speed up Jinx's base by a few seconds, he decides to steal those seconds from her and bases instead. So this is exactly the same as that rebound realm, only he started even earlier, giving him even more free time, which he uses to just run straight down top lane as he sees Riven's wave is pushing into Sylas, getting there in time to hide in the bush and set up a super easy kill. Now, okay, I already know precisely what every one of you are thinking right now. All of this sounds great in theory, SkillCapped, but whenever you roam, your ADC, they just die. They tilt, and you lose the game anyway. Well, here's the truth. You have to get out of that mindset as a support if you want to climb. The roam timers we're teaching you here, they're done purposefully on a wave pushing into your ADC. If they decide to go and fight 1v2 and they die or get caught and engaged on while seeing that you're roaming, and I hate to break it to you, but there's very little chance you're going to win the game through bot lane with a player who can't just play safe or give up a few minions while you're gone. Meaning in most cases, it's probably going to be better that you're roaming anyway, as your other laners are likely going to have to be the ones to have to carry the game, and as such, your time is going to be better spent getting them ahead anyway. But regardless, around that 14-minute mark, something super important happens. Everybody starts finishing their role quest, and this marks the start of the mid game. At this point, regardless of where your ADC decides to go, you should be heading to mid. And if you've been paying attention, you already know why. It's the exact same reason we pad through mid when roaming. It's the center of the map, meaning you can rotate to anywhere on the map, sync up with your jungler, gank a side lane, be at either objective, and get vision across the entire map. But here's where every support messes up. Lane phase ends and they want to get vision, so they just walk into the enemy jungle and start placing wards. They get caught, they die, and man, that just sounds all too familiar, right? Well, in order to safely get your wards down, the number one thing you need is your team to push the mid wave out first. And there's two reasons for this. First, if your team has the push, you get to move onto the map first, meaning you set up your vision line before the enemy even has a chance to contest it. Second, once you shove that wave, the enemies have to show on it to collect the farm, so you know where they are and you know it's safe. Exactly like we see from Janna here. She wants to get vision in the enemy bot side jungle, but if she went now, it would for sure mean certain death with Seraphine, Lee, and Xerath all just lurking around. So he helps Ashe push in the wave, which then forces Xerath and Seraphine to go and answer, meaning it's now safe for her and Ashe to get deep vision. But vision as a whole all basically comes down to one singular concept. Where's the next objective that you're either going to be contesting or defending? It could be a turret, a neutral objective, even a jungle camp. And that's the side of the map that your wards should be on. And remember, wards last up to 2.5 minutes, so ideally, you want to start setting up vision around the next objective as early as 2 minutes before that objective spawns. Then base, and then have another set of wards to either retake or defend your vision. And this same exact concept basically defines support macro in the mid game as well. You just need to be in the right place at the right time, which is funny because I know how that's going to sound. So yeah, thanks SkillCapped, great advice, but bear with me here. Being in the right place is truthfully not all that difficult because all you need to do is constantly ask yourself one single question. Where's the next play gonna happen? See, a massive mistake that support players do tend to make, and one of the main reasons they struggle to carry games, is that they'll do exactly what this Soraka does here. We're 19 minutes into the game, they just picked up a kill with Vayne on the Smolder, and then they base. Then they just head back bot with their ADC, but remember, all we care about is where the next play is most likely going to happen, and this is actually the worst place she could be right now. Herald's up, her jungler's topside, meaning if a play breaks out, there's a good chance it's going to be around mid or top. And who would have guessed? Mundo starts Herald shortly after, and Nami and Mord end up collapsing while Soraka is stuck on the wrong side of the map, doing nothing. But too many supports fall into this same trap. They tether themselves to their ADC and basically let that one player dictate their map movements and how they macro in the mid to late game. Only, there's a slight issue with all of this. What makes you think a random ADC in the same elo as you is going to make the correct macro choices? Now, spoiler, chances are they're not going to make the right choices. But as you're obviously limited in what you can actually do alone, one amazing way to navigate mid-game macro is to just play around the strongest member of your team. This doesn't mean you glue yourself to them though, as that's just going to make things harder for them. You discourage fights, you soak their gold, you soak their XP. Instead, just set up vision around them so they can play more aggressively, or just aim to shadow them, and shadows in quotes here, staying just out of sight, hovering nearby or in fog, so if they get collapsed on, you're there to instantly turn that fight around. But while we wish we could go into even more detail in all of this video, it's already getting insanely long, guys, and we've got a bunch of tips and tricks that you can start abusing in your very next game that we just had to cover here. So if you want any more information on how to navigate the mid and the late game, warding, even learning how to team fight on different types of supports, you can find literally everything you need in our brand new Essentials course. But before we wrap things all up in this video, let's jump into some tips here. One of the biggest changes to Season 16 was, of course, the game now starting a whole lot faster, and because of that, level 1 shenanigans and invades are, well, they're basically a thing of the past. However, still in low elo games, it does feel like every other replay that we watch, bot lane ends up being thrown to somebody cheesing the lane bush at level 1. But there's such a simple solution to this now, as in every high elo game, the exact same thing happens. Either the ADC or support rushes to the lane and wards this middle bush here, and this just completely removes your opponent ever having the possibility to cheese you. So get into the habit of doing this one thing. Next, another great tip is that you can actually sell your support item. Well, I guess that's kind of obvious, but more importantly, sell it and buy a different item. Now, to understand why this is so useful, let's say you're playing something like Poppy support, and in the early game, your damage here is honestly really impactful, so going something like Blood Song could be great for roaming or bursting down targets, especially when you're ahead. But as a support, on a support budget, you eventually do fall off, which is where with this tip, you can sell your support item, spend only 240 gold, and swap it to Celestial Opposition. Now, in those late game team fights, you're going to be far more useful, as you're going to actually be able to stay alive there. And there's tons of other use cases, like with Sona, for example. While Blood Song is the default choice in most games, it does tend to fall off the late game, so a simple swap to Dreammaker ends up providing you with a ton more value. And speaking of that support item, another quick PSA here, as you probably know, other laners get extra role quest contribution when in their chosen lane. Well, this doesn't apply to support whatsoever past level 3, as your entire role quest is just tied to your support item stacks. So as long as you're using them on cooldown and avoiding staying at 3 stacks, it doesn't matter where you use them. And on the topic of role quest, one mistake you have to avoid is overbuying pink wards in the early game. In fact, many high elo support players just don't buy them at all until their role quest is complete, at which point they're now so cheap that you should always buy 2 when leaving base unless it prevents you finishing an important item or component. However, a slightly more realistic approach is to just only buy a single pink ward if you're ahead, and this way you can put it in tri-brush during lane phase and have a higher chance of protecting it. Otherwise, remember, each pink ward you buy that gets killed is technically a 100 gold swing, as you're spending 75 gold and giving 25 if it dies. But speaking of wards, make sure you have an option to normal cast your wards. This provides so much information that you honestly should not be playing support without it. So you can see where a ward's going to go when placing one over the wall by paying attention to the reticle, meaning you open up a ton of warding spots. You can see how many wards you have down and even the area the ward reveals, which is great for making sure you get vision in all the correct areas, as well as preventing you doing wards like this one over the wall that lets your opponent just walk by for free. A great trick with this is to bind your trinket ward and item slot where you have your support item to quick cast with indicators. This enables you to still place wards quickly in a pinch, but also holding the bind, you get full control. Last, but definitely not least here, never be afraid of taking kills, unless of course it's 100% completely free. There's so many times where we see supports exactly like this Blitzcrank here, trying their utmost best to give the kill to their team that they either end up going 1-for-1 or even escaping. Just take the kill, man. And hey, if you found this guide helpful, this is only the tip of the iceberg, I promise you. Our brand new Season 16 Essentials course, it breaks down every single stage of the game, from the early lane phase where you're going to learn everything you need to know about wave management and trading to ensure you always win lane, even if you're on Enchanter with the worst ADC possible, man, to mastering the mid game in our warding and macro courses, teaching you all about the secret macro decisions challenger supports are abusing this season, including a whole chapter dedicated to teaching you precisely how to team fight on every type of support, including when and how to engage. Try all of this out completely risk-free today using the link in the description or pinned comment below. And if you don't climb at least 5 divisions while actively using our service, we're going to give you every penny back, no questions asked. For now though, thank you all for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.